Hey ADF fans, in this video I want to talk to you about managing the compute environment for your data factory data flows. So data flows are the data transformation piece of data factory, and they're built upon Apache Spark. So to provide a just-in-time Spark environment for you, what Data Factory does is it spins up on-demand Azure Databricks clusters in the background. Everything is fully managed by Microsoft and Azure Data Factory. You don't need to manage those clusters of Spark at all. Essentially, Data Factory manages those Databricks clusters, and Databricks manages the Spark environments and the VMs and networking and everything else that's needed to execute those data flows. But what you can do is you can control some of that environment, and you're going to want to, as you progress through using data flows for data transformation and in production, you're going to want to understand a little bit about it. And so what I'm going to do today is explain to you how you can manage that environment. So let's get started. On my screen I have the ADF UI open in my browser, and the way you're going to tell Data Factory to use different compute environments is you're going to go to connections at the bottom. When you click on connections, you're going to have a couple of different options in there. We're going to focus on integration runtimes. So every factory provides you with an out-of-the-box auto-resolve integration runtime, and that will work just fine to get started. For data flows, this gives you an 8-core general purpose Azure Databricks Spark environment that you can use for debugging and for executing your data flows. Now it's important to separate those two things, the debugging and the execution, from a pipeline. And I'll explain that to you in just a second. So first, what I want to do is I want to show you how to create your own compute environments. Once you start using data flows more, you're going to want to have a separate environment for debug and one for execution and operationalizing your data flows in production. So let's start with a debug cluster. So I'm going to start by saying new integration runtime, and you're always going to want to create an Azure Integration Runtime for this. Under Azure Integration Runtime, you're going to see the flow runtime, your data flow properties. So let's go through these. You get compute type, core count, and time to live. Compute type is the different types of VMs for the cluster to run on. We have general purpose, compute optimized, and memory optimized, different categories. General purpose is what you get with the auto resolve integration runtime, and that works pretty well for general purpose like debugging. When you're executing your data flows with more data, and when you start to operationalize, you're going to probably want to use memory optimized. Memory optimized is very good for data flows because data flows are built on Spark, and Spark is a very memory intensive environment with wanting to put data in data frames, store those in memory. And so memory optimized is going to work probably the best out of all these. Now you can set a core count. Core count will let you dictate how many total cores you get, and then Data Factory will figure out the number of nodes that'll get spun up in the background. 4 plus 4, which is 8 cores, essentially 4 for the driver and 4 for a single worker, is the default that you get out of the box. And you can see why I recommend going with your own debug environment, because 4 cores for a worker node is pretty small. So for generally speaking, for debug purposes, a 16-core driver is a good size, and probably general purpose is good, so we'll stick with that. Now, time to live tells Data Factory that you wish to stand up a pool of resources dedicated just to your factory, so that you can continue to issue jobs against that pool, and the pool will already be warm, your cluster. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but for debug, you don't need that. So I'm just going to have a debug cluster here. I'm going to call this my debug environments. Right? So there we go. I think my spelling is. And so we're good to go. So I'm going to click create. So that's going to create the definition for that integration runtime. It's not going to stand up any computes or any clusters or anything like that. This just defines an environment. So let's define one more. Let's define our production environment. Now, because when you execute your operationalized data flows, we run in a just-in-time ephemeral environment such that the Spark compute comes up, executes a job, and then disappears. So it's very, very effective and efficient and very cost-effective. But you may want to have an environment where you can have lots of jobs, and you don't want to always incur the time it takes to spin up the clusters. So the compromise of having an economical model like this one that Data Factory has for data flows is that you then have some latency on the startup of your jobs, which can be 5 to 6 minutes. Now you can cut that down to 1 to 2 minutes by doing this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call this my operational call it environment. And under data flow runtime, I'm going to give this memory optimized. I want a little bit more juice behind this compute environment. And let's go with, we'll go with 64 cores for this one. 16 for the driver, and the rest will go to worker nodes. Now I'm going to set a time to live. Because this is a demo, and I'm going to run consecutive data flows against it, I can set for 10 minutes. We will bill you for the time to live as well as the time the execution takes. Keep that in mind, but this will set aside a pool of resources for you. Okay, so I'm going to click create, and this will give you the lowest latency for your data flows. So now I'm going to start my debug environment. So I'm going to click on data flow debug, and I will select my debug environment. This will take that 5 to 6 minutes to start up. This is always something you have to incur when you start your debug environment, so I recommend you doing this first thing, or while you're designing and building, and then 5 minutes later you can come back and see that your debug environment is there. You only need it when you want to preview and do some things like import schemas and test connections and things of that nature. But you can start working, so let's go ahead and do a data flow. Now, the first data flow I'm going to do is actually going to be a data flow that's going to do nothing except warm up that pool, so that to get that pool instantiated so you can start throwing jobs at it, is going to take 5 to 6 minutes for Azure to stand up that Databricks environment. So I have a data flow that I call warm flow. And let me explain what this one is. Very, very simple. It basically really does nothing. It just has a source of a single file that's called warm data. This warm data file has one field, one column, one value in it. So let's take a look at the data. You can see all it has is number 1. That's it, with no header. So very, very simple. So it can be very, very fast. And then all the sync is going to do is just write to a folder. So that's it. All this is doing is this is essentially dummy data flow, just meant to warm up your pool, and now you run that once during the day and you're good to go, and your pool will be warm and you can start issuing jobs against it without that latency. It's only take 1 to 2 minutes for every job execution done. Now the way that you execute this, because this is all just in debug, is you make a pipeline. So I'm going to have a pipeline that is going to run this warm flow. So right now it's called pipeline 1, but let's actually call this as ATL. So this would be something that I would probably trigger once a day to run. So let's go ahead and do that. So let me set this first of all for the correct integration runtime. So under settings for the data flow activity, I need to set it to the proper integration runtime. I'm going to set it for my operational environment. My debug environment is set to my debug environment IR, and my operationalized activity is set to my operational environment. This is gonna stand up the warm pool. Let me go ahead and publish this so I can get it over into my live environments, and then I'm going to execute this from a trigger so we can get the warm pool stood up. My data flow environment is still spinning up, so let's go ahead and let's trigger this. Now, while that is running in the background, this is going to warm up my pool. Let's do a regular data flow. So I have a data flow that's actually going to do something a little bit more than just warm up my cluster. I get it very simple, but it's my movies data, my movie sample data. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull out a couple of columns. I have a derived column that's going to extract the integer value of the year from the title. The title is embedded in the title of this version of my data set. And then the title will be the rest of that. So I'm going to pull that out, both of these from the column called title. Okay, I'm not going to focus on the logic. This is just logic for a simple sample data flow. Then I'm going to write that data out. So now I want to execute this, and I don't want to wait for a fresh new cluster to start up, spin up every time. So what I'll do is I'll run this as a separate pipeline that will go up against that same integration runtime that's already warm. So now you do a new pipeline. We'll call this my regular ETL, and then add that data flow system movie demo 1, and make sure that your integration runtime is the same integration runtime. So now what's going to happen is every time that this executes, it's going to use that same pool of resources that's already warm. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's see. Let's publish this. We're still waiting for the debug cluster to come up. We don't even need to worry about that. I don't think we're even going to use it for this demo. But what we'll do now, because we're running these pipelines in published mode, we need to go over to the monitoring to see the status. So my warm ETL is still running, so it's still building, instantiating that pool of resources. That's going to take about 5 to 6 minutes to do that. Once that's done, we'll have a warm pool, and then what we'll do is we'll set a trigger to run the regular ETL, which I called regular ETL. Okay, so at this point, let me pause and come back in a couple of minutes, and then we'll pick up the rest on the other side. Okay, so we're back. So the warm my ETL process is done, which means I now have a warm pool for the next 10 minutes. I have to issue another job against that same Azure IR within 10 minutes, or it will go away and I'll have to restart again. It took 6 minutes and 25 seconds. Let's look at the monitoring view to see where the time was spent. The cluster startup was 5 minutes and 41 seconds, and the rest of the time was job execution, which was just about under 7 seconds. And then writing the data to the sink was the rest of the time. And so now we have a warm pool. So let's go ahead and let's go over to that the actual ETL itself that we want to run, which is the movie demo. So on the movie demo, we have the movie demo set here as my data flow, and the pipeline is called regular ETL. Now what we can do is let's trigger that. So we're going to go ahead and do a trigger now. So now this time, if I hadn't set the warm pool with the TTL of 10 minutes on that integration runtime, this would take again 5 to 6 minutes to spin up a brand new cluster environment. Now it can use the VM that's already warm. It does have to instantiate the Databricks environment and the job execution, but that's going to take a lot less time. By the way, while we're waiting for that, I want to show you one other thing. I spun up the background Dataflow debug cluster using my debug environment, Azure IR. I didn't actually use it, but you can look at the status of that over here with this View Active Debug Runs in Sessions button over here. And you will see that it is running. We'll also tell you who started it, and from here you can do things like you can shut it down and you can stop it from here. It also tells you how many minutes are remaining before the session auto times outs, which we do to save you from having that running all the time. And it tells you the type of compute that we use. Remember, we use general compute with 32 cores. So that's available to you there. Okay, let's go and look at the monitoring view and see now how our ETL job is going. So we're at, let me refresh. We are a little over a minute right now on the execution. Let's go into the into the pipeline itself and look at the data flow to see what's going on. Okay, here we go. So we can see that the status is it is running, it is spinning, and it is acquiring the compute. So this compute may take up to 2 minutes to acquire. It's going to be a lot less than having to stand up a brand new cluster environment this job. So going back to the activity monitoring view, we refresh. We see we're at 3 minutes. Let's take a look at what's going on. So now we have essentially completed the data flows. I just happened to complete right when I clicked it. The cluster startup time took 2 minutes and 38 seconds versus the 6 minutes that it took about 6 minutes that it takes to stand up the original cluster environment. If I issue any other jobs against that, we will get the same, or we get similar performance out of that cluster. So now if we go and we trigger this again, we're going to issue jobs as long as we're within that TTL time period, and we'll get the much faster startup time for these jobs. Second execution, innovation, our second execution of that data flow. Okay, and so this time the cluster startup time is 2 minutes and 16 seconds to get the job executed. So there's some ways that you can manage your environments within Azure Data Factory's data flows from operationalized executions and how to cut down the latency for the just-in-time on-demand cluster. Thanks for watching.